Welcome to another Mental Wealth Moves podcast. I'm your host, Casey Dubravcic. Today we're talking about mental wealth moves and how to become the best version of yourself. Today we discuss the three currencies: time, energy, and money. Let's get right to it. I hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another Mental Wealth Moves podcast. I'm your host, Casey Dubravcic, and today, for you, we have a very special episode on why we have the title of this podcast. And so I'll be going in depth on ways that you can and should, we're shoulding all over ourselves around here, be able to invest in yourself and good ways to do that. And so let's get right into it. And I would like to start with, again, the title of this podcast, Mental Wealth Moves, because the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. And I don't think of just money as investment. I think there are three main currencies, things we can spend. And so the first one is your time. You only have so many minutes in the day, hours, weeks in the years in your life, weekends you can spend with family and friends. And so the first currency is time. The second currency I want to talk about is your energy. You only have so much energy. And so you've got to sleep. And while you are awake, you need to devote your energy. Well, you don't need to do anything. I recommend, and part of why you're listening to this podcast, hopefully, is that you do want to feel well. You want to feel great. You want to feel awesome. You want to feel fantastic. And so you only have so much energy to devote to yourself and to the universe and to your friends and to your family and to your job and to your workers and everything else. So you only have so much time and so much energy. The third currency is actual money. And so that's the value unit that we've attached as a society to being able to trade for goods and services. And so it makes it a lot easier to create an economy of scale. It makes it a lot easier to create like really awesome things, for instance, like really well machined things, like the digital leash that I'm talking to you on right now, like really cool stuff like this, and as well as this little guy. Yeah, I love him. Can we focus on it? Yeah, we can. Rocky the Rocktopus. And so there's only so much time, only so much energy, and only so much actual money that we all have to invest in ourselves. And so early on in your life, oftentimes you have more time and more energy than you do money. Later in life, if you're playing your cards right, you should have more money uh, because you traded time and energy for that money. And so, that being said, there are lots of potential pitfalls and lots of ways to amplify those things. So, let's start with time. So, time in general, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. How are you going to use that time? And so, for me, I think there are lots of ways to kind of trick the system and to be able to better invest in yourself, make the right mental wealth moves when it comes to time. I like the James Clear Atomic Habits kind of decision tree, where you can cycle upwards or you can cycle downwards, right from the very start of your day. Are you going to get up right away, or are you going to press snooze? All right, that's the first decision. And so if you're pressing snooze all the time, my concern for you is either you're not resting well enough. So, are you finding that you're drinking alcohol at night? If you're drinking alcohol at night, you won't go into as much restorative sleep. And so, thereby, you probably won't feel quite as rested when you wake up in the morning. Thereby, you'll likely want to do a little bit more of your regular seatbelt thing that there's a passenger when it's really just water bottles sitting next to me. Love this self-driving thing. It's pretty neat. So there's only so much time in the day, and where we invest that time is where we get dividends long term. And so if you're working for someone else and you have opportunities to move up in that organization, or you have opportunities to learn in that organization, to be able to move up in a different organization, then you want to devote that time to learning and growing and being able to exceed expectations so you can get that letter of recommendation. We're talking like early on in your career and how you move forward. So the best investment of your time is being able to become slightly better version of yourself, and making those micro decisions really add up. So again, like I get out of bed and instead, so let's do a good decision tree, right? So like I like to go upwards, right? So I get up right away without my alarm at 6 a.m. because I went to sleep early and I'm rested. Okay, and then what's the next decision? So I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to get on my phone. Getting on my phone, cycling downwards, meditating, cycling upwards. And so you get this little rush of being able to focus longer. You get this little like oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin hit from being able to take that time for yourself when you do that meditation practice and build that into your schedule. Okay, and then so we woke up without the alarm, cycling upwards. We made that decision to meditate, cycling upwards, and then we can either, you know, go to the gym, cycle upwards, or get a good workout in, cycle upwards, go for a walk or a jog, cycling upwards, or we can, bust into those honey buns, right? They're delicious, by the way. Everything in moderation, including moderation. So I'm never going to tell you you need to, do all these things. You don't need to do anything. One thing I do like to kind of reiterate is that the energy in, energy out, every part of life. And so the best investment of your time is positively. And so, you go to work all day, you have a productive day, you learn a lot, you're investing in your learning. You should always be learning every day, and that's always a great investment of your time. Learning skills, learning micro skills. I like that, you can teach someone to be an empathic person by having them, greet people by name, by having them listen first, by having them make eye contact and smile while people are talking. You can do all these kind of micro skills that allow for open body posture, those types of things where someone would say, oh, that's an empathic person because they do all these things, and those are things that you can learn, right? And I always do think that your strengths will always be your strengths. Your weaknesses will always be your weaknesses. And likely at an early age, you recognize things that you're good at. Again, that Japanese ikigai, I really like that. I think that's where we all should invest our energy and time and money. Is what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what you get paid for. The overlap. That's where we should be investing our time. And so, and energy and money. So with the time, like look at your evening, right? Am I going home and then am I just watching the boob tube, the idiot box, as my mom says? Or am I, working on my side hustle or building my business or spending time with my friends and family? Am I, you know, in the sauna? Am I doing cold plunge? Am I dancing and creating art and music? You really need to consider like what's the best investment of my time. And we're all gonna have bad days. We're all gonna have days where we like just lay in bed and don't want to do anything, like oh my gosh, there's so much to do, I want to do nothing instead. And that's not unreasonable. So being able to recognize that, so powerful. When it comes to kind of regular normal days, you should try to create circumstances and time for yourself that your day looks normal 7 days a week. And so you should get up around the same time, go to sleep around the same time, and you should consider creating a routine for yourself in that, 5 to 6 a.m., getting up, I'm having my workout, I'm doing my meditation. 6 to 9 a.m., I'm uninterrupted work. The time blocking can be super powerful. And then, 9 to 12, I'm answering email, I'm catching up on meeting type things, schedule meetings. And then, like I like Tim Ferriss's 4 hour work week. Like if you time block and you're effective with your time and you're, stingy with your time, in that like you say no to opportunities. Like no is very powerful in creating rad stuff. Like say, hey, like, that's not worth my time or energy. Um, if you decide to kind of move forward with a different lifestyle, oftentimes you'll find that your group of friends will shift, and that's okay. Like, this is really about you, and the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. And so, that's the title of this podcast. That's what we're talking about. And so you want to surround yourself with people that are, in a better space than you in regards to like being what you want, like the life that you want to live. And so I think that's super important. And then it also allows for you to be living your best life. And so I think that's really like long term what we need to look at. Like long term, where do you want to be? How do you want to exist in this universe? How do you want to be perceived? How do you want to surround yourself? What's the life that you want to live? And so your time is super important, and it should be treated as such, right? We only have so many years. Like there's some longevity experts that say they can live to 200. I doubt that. Like I think that, like part of the human experience is having this, like maybe 120, 150 in like a really, really good kind of cryopreserved type of way. But that would be very abnormal still. I think 80 to 110 is kind of like you could have a quality of life. Like, yeah, Futurama will preserve our brains if we can neuralink ourselves in and be able to kind of download our existence and be able to share that. Yeah, that could be kind of cool. It could also be kind of weird, like hanging out with your, great, 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 great grandpa who was kind of annoying and, talked a lot. You're like, you really didn't have that much to share, and now you're telling the same stories over and over again. So, I just think that that kind of inordinate longevity shouldn't be something that should be strived for, rather than living like quantity. I want quality. And so you see a lot of those longevity experts, and they're, having hundreds and hundreds of supplements, buckets of supplements, and doing these types of things. I think in general, like I want to live a life worth living, right? Like I don't want you to show up to a birthday party with boiled chicken. I want you to be able to have that slice of cake. I want you to be able to, exist and, go to that Super Bowl party and have a bunch of deliciousness and gorge yourself on periodically, right? Everything in moderation, including moderation. Dose makes the medicine, dose makes the poison. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And so, agree to disagree. If you think they can 200, like more power to you. Like I hope that you do, if that's what you want to do. And then, so that, time in general, again, that kind of decision tree throughout the day, and throughout your life, right? Like when the only moment you really have is right now. This moment right now, listening to this. Everything else we're, hoping for. And so, you can, with that, you can try to make tangible steps towards a better future for yourself. And so, that being said, the work should be the joy. So, like, really doing what you can to be in that ikigai will allow for much better understanding of yourself, much better just day-to-day existence, and just much more positive life in general, as far as feeling good about yourself on your daily practice. Are there going to be some busy times where, it isn't as much fun and you're looking at like 12 or 16 or 18-hour days? Potentially. Can you make those relatively fun too? Yes, I think so. When you're accomplishing something, when you're seeing something be created, when you're seeing the fruits of your labor, and sometimes the fruits of your labor will take months and months or, even years to see the full fruits of your labor. That being said, like if you aren't getting some kind of like, hey, I did a good job, attaboy of myself or the universe, that's going to be hard to sustain. And so even if it's like a feeling like you're helping somebody, you should build that into your schedule, some way of being of service to friends or to, the public or to the internet. Like I think it's important to build that in somehow or another. The so that's time in general, and so I think that the other thing that is really worth, goodness, all right, I can't even like you try to like swipe these things away and then like a billion more come in, and so I'm just gonna leave it alone. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning besides time, obviously, those three currencies. So let's dive into energy. Like, where do you do all your energy? How do you get more energy? Um, and so, I guess how do you get more time? So looking at your habits, right? Like you look at your screen time on your phone. You can look at your TV, and determine like, hey, am I watching a show a night? Am I watching two shows a night? Am I watching two movies a night? And you kind of do the math there. Like, oh man, watch next episode. I sure did. I did that a lot. And like, wow, that was 3 hours. Like, what could I have done in that 3 hours that I woke up this morning being like, oh, I got to do that. Could have done that last night while I was trying to, watch a show. And so, maybe like think about that. Like if you spend time with family and like you're both laughing at it, like, and that's how you like to spend your time. Sure, like why not? That being said, like, what about a hike? What about a walk? What about a hot tub dip? What about a sauna? What about a workout? What about somewhere else where you're talking to each other more and there's more of a dialogue? What about playing a game? And so there's lots of ways to do it, and that's kind of the hacks to get more time is look at where you're spending your time. We do this thing in medicine where you do like a 24-hour food diary, what you're eating. That could be something that we could incorporate into the energy bucket because I'll tell you what you put in will really affect how much energy you have on a daily basis. And then the time, going back to time, if you did a 24-hour or even 72-hour or even a week long, like time journal of what I did this week, where I devoted my time, was I doom scrolling from 7 to 9 a.m. when I got to my job, or what were you doing? I don't know, but you do, and then or maybe you don't. And doing that kind of inventory can allow you to understand, hey, where could I get some more time? Because chances are you could. And if you're not getting quality sleep, the time isn't like you're never gonna feel that great. And so you might have sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, central sleep apnea. And so looking at, is it worth getting a sleep study if I like chronically wake up tired? Sleep hygiene is huge. Look at at Revitalize, we have really clear guidance for sleep hygiene as well as a nightmare protocol. And it really takes practice, 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 practice. And so we know that anything we prescribe in psychiatry for sleep will stop working or reduce working over time. We also know that 95 to 99% of sleep wake disorders will go away if you spend 5 days out in the woods with no artificial lighting. And so like that's really hard to do. And we know it works. So that, you know, that's a societal construct. And I would start there. I think and then I want to be clear, like as a human being, as a fellow, like let's go guys, we got this, let's make things better type of person. I don't think the answer is to go backwards in time. The answer isn't to go back in teepees and pooping in, the holes in the ground. Like, let's do the yes and, right? Like, yes, there is a lot of value to be had from a close knit community. And through our economy of scale, we've been able to create some really incredible things. Yes, it is important to recognize that it's been hard to assimilate this when our current evolutionary state, we can hold the empathic load of up to 120 people. And we're getting better. Every day, human beings get better at handling really challenging things. Well, we're very adaptable. And so I feel like we're on the precipice of the human evolution. Biggest shift is going from that no because kind of that scarcity mindset to the yes and the more abundance oriented mindset. I think the biggest shift, we're having a big energy breakthrough. So like battery technology potentially, because we're already creating an excessive amount of energy. We just don't, we aren't really good at storing it. And so that would probably be incredibly helpful. More technological breakthrough on renewable energy or something like along those lines. Nuclear has the capacity to be really good. We're just all a little afraid of it. Cold fusion, there was that big breakthrough I think last year where they actually got more energy out than they put in. That's big. And so what that looks like with breakthroughs and artificial intelligence and how to leverage that. It's exciting times. Exciting time to be alive. So that's kind of a little offshoot of what I was talking about. So energy, right? How do we get more energy? How much energy do we have? Describe energy to me. Define energy. So energy is the amount of energy you have to create things, to devote to projects, to get out of bed, right? Like that's the first thing we normally do in the day. And then again, like you don't have much energy, it's going to be really hard to not press that snooze button. So looking at that, what does that look like? And then, where do we go from there? So like again, the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. And so it's interesting, people are like, I don't have energy to work out. And then when you do work out, you get more energy. And so we should all really build physical activity into our daily practice. 40 minutes of heart raising physical activity daily, at least. And I tell people, right when you get up, within 40 minutes of awakening, you should start 40 minutes of hard physical activity. And then ideally another brisk walk or something kind of heart raising in the early afternoon. We're not designed to be as sedentary as we've created ourselves to be, or our lifestyles created ourselves. So, like, I think of, was that Wall-E, where the humans like all in the motorized wheelchair and just like very obese. And so, I think the availability of ubiquitous, high calorie, high densely caloric, high inflammatory foods, the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet, not great for us. And it's really highly available. And so I think if we can start going back to was it 1930s, 40% of food came from home gardens and home farms. And so that's pretty significant. And I don't think that you can count on like one hand the amount of friends that that even have like a tomato plant in their house. So it's uncommon to grow your own food now. And I think that should change because pretty much all of us live around at least some soil, or we can put soil in our house and use the sun and use water and use seeds and create rad stuff. So gardening is a great way to create healthful foods. So physical activity, healthful foods, both of those things will increase the amount of energy that you have in a day. Again, quality sleep, paramount. Without quality sleep, nothing else is going to get you more energy than quality sleep. So being able to recognize the need for quality sleep and leveraging that, investing in a bed that's comfortable, looking at good sleep hygiene so that you can sleep well, resting appropriately. Human beings need between 4 and 12 hours of sleep. Everyone's really different. So some people need up to 12 hours to get the rest that they need in a day. And that's okay. Some people need as little as a little more than 4. And that's enough for them. And so as long as you feel rested, like it's enough. You don't have to strive for 7 hours. There's a certain amount of like packets of sleep that most people should get. Some people operate less than that, and that's okay. Like it's not unsafe. If you're going less than 4 hours of sleep for more than 4 days, it can be dangerous. People start having delusions, psychoses, and it can be pretty dangerous. So, 4 hours or less of sleep for more than 4 days. And so, pretty much everyone has probably have some form of sleep deprivation in their life, and you'll notice on that bell curve distribution of every disorder that I think all of us live on. Most of us have, that much major depressive disorder. Some of us have this much and you get diagnosed. Some of us have this much and really are kind of more on the less depressed spectrum. Same thing with psychoses. And so most of us, have this much. You'll hear your name called a couple times in your life and be like, what? And then there's no one here, or your family member or friend is like, I didn't call your name. Oh, okay. And then some of us exist on the more psychotic side, right? Where you're hearing your name more frequently, or you have a more vivid imagination, and you can kind of create things that aren't there more frequently. Oftentimes, those are beautiful artists. If you look back historically, like there's been very interesting anecdotal stories of what those people accomplished and how those people were able to have other people follow them and view them as messiahs or view them as some sort of seer or knower. And potentially, I don't know, like it seems like there's some things that people are able to foretell that would be really hard to foretell otherwise. And so, I think like not everything should just be dismissed by regard, and we should be interested in knowing. Just being curious. I think being curious is always the way. That being said, I want people to sleep. Right? You're gonna get much better energy. You're gonna be much better about how you exist on a day-to-day basis if you're sleeping. For most people, between 5 and 9 hours a night. Again, that's kind of the middle of that. So setting up your life to be conducive to getting that kind of sleep. And then some people might sleep 3.5 hours a night and then have an hour and a half nap every day. So they're still getting the right amount. They just don't have it all clustered together. That's fine. As long as you're getting that in a 24-hour period regularly, I get more than four, then you're safe for the most part. Sleep isn't the only thing, right? Sleep is, I think, the most important. Like if people come to me in my psychiatric practice at the academy clinic, I tell them, hey, if you aren't sleeping, nothing else is gonna work. So let's get you sleeping, and then the other things can start really be, working better. So being aware of that is so important. Excuse me. And then other energetic things that you're going to get more energy with are densely healthful, like densely nutrient foods. So, leafy greens, pretty healthy. Organic for like the dirty dozen because of all the pesticides and kind of food stabilizers that people put on things. There was a real interesting study that came out pretty recently that actually, after being picked, most vegetables and fruits lose a significant amount of nutrient density in transit. So actually, the flash frozen vegetables have more nutrient density than do the fresh vegetables in the grocery store. Freshly picked from the vine at your house, like, oh, there you go. Like, that's the best, right? And again, economy of scale, like you aren't going to be able to grow the diversity of foods, most likely in the climate that you're in, without going to the grocery. Well, you won't be able to grow them. It's just improbable. And I think Jack Cruz, a couple other people, they say like where you're living, like as far as your like latitude, longitude, or at least like your distance away from the equator should be considered when you're thinking about how which foods to eat, and if you're getting foods grown closer to where you're at, it's actually more healthy for you. And again, there's so many things in science and psychiatry and medicine that we're just beginning to start to think about understanding and remembering. I think that's something too, right? Because being able to ship foods from Ecuador and Chile and have them be less expensive than foods from the United States, that's interesting, right? Like grown, harvested, plucked, packaged, boxed, sprayed, shipped, unboxed, shipped, or shipped, unboxed, picked, plucked, placed, less expensive than uh, growing stuff in the United States. It's interesting, right? So that being said, again, home garden, I think a beautiful way to, at least a couple of things, being able to pluck things out. Just start with what? How cool is that to like have some cherry tomatoes? You're like, wow, I know this wasn't sprayed with pesticide, and then man, that's awesome. So yeah, I recommend that for energy, and so densely nutrient food, uh, quality rest, and physical activity. Those are some energy hacks, and I would argue existing in your ikigai as well. You'll find more reward in your daily practice, kind of being able to feel like you're doing what you want to be doing. And so that's a big energy giver. And being around, like picking the right people is so powerful. People in your life. And so, do you have people bringing you up? Do you have people cheering you on? Do you have people that you feel good about having in your life? Awesome. Then be around those people. Do you have people that you feel like are always trying to pull you down? When we talk about relationships, we talk about deposits and withdrawals. And so if you're in some relationships that are nothing but withdrawals, you might want to consider mitigating that relationship as much as you can. Some people in your life are going to be in your life, and you might want to mitigate that relationship even more if those people are very in your life. So, like that's a form of toxicity in some ways. If these people are always take, and not very give. So we have seasonality in our lives where we're going to be more take or more give. And so taking that into consideration and, acting accordingly when you're trying to reduce toxicity. We have this kind of pie graph in our Revitalized Ketamine Clinic integration workbook on how to best use the treatments, and they should be used as a catalyst, not a cure. And so with that, reducing toxicity is so important. Oh, no. Okay. And so, trying to be mindful of that as we're growing and as we're developing our sense of self. So again, feeling safe to feel safe is so important. Like that's where we start with the ketamine treatment. So 95% of the work at first is just that reset button. Like, oh, I can feel safe. Understanding that your body, your mind can feel safe. And then where do we go from there? From there, I would argue that you should be reducing toxicity. That should be a big part of your kind of forward moving workflow. Oftentimes, people's environments are fairly toxic, and that's not great. So being aware of that, being cognizant of that, and acting accordingly, so important. The other thing that I think is super important when it comes to kind of how to move forward is that healthy living, right? Like the daily practice. So that's where Rocked is born out of, right? Revitalize, kind of recognizing that things could be better, getting that safe to feel safe, and then the optimizing kind of daily practice. That's that physical activity. That's that taking care of yourself. That's that eating the nutrient dense foods. That's, treating everything as sacred as you can, in that you're doing it on purpose, like from human connection to the what you're feeding yourself to how you're utilizing your time and energy. And then so that's a healthy living, right? And then the harmonizing, that's that living in that ikigai, that's that moving towards your ikigai, that again, that Venn diagram overlap of what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. I think everyone has strengths. In general, it was the norming school, right, created by the Rockefellers, teaching people rather than how to be a human, how to be good workers. And so that's why school is often nearing, that 8 hours in a room, listening to instructions, taking instructions. And, in large part, higher education is very similar in how we are creating good employees, not good thinkers. And so think about that. Be mindful of that, right? Like I think that for my own children, like I'm not necessarily recommending school for them. And in general, there's a lot of indoctrination. We just saw that a lot with how executive orders can change so much of a culture, uh, and it's interesting. Uh, you know, I don't think that in general, we should be indoctrinating our youth with, standards and these types of, you must think like this, you must accept these people for this, you must, and you're going against a lot of like hard-grained, um, like software, hardware kind of things. Like there's a reason that sex feels so good and that it is like so enjoyable for most people, because without like sex being interesting or something to be like we want, then we wouldn't procreate as much. We wouldn't make babies. And without babies, we wouldn't be where we're at. And so, telling people that it's normal to be attracted to the opposite or to the same sex, or to, really try to cram that down people's throats, that it's something that you should consider. Um, I don't think that's great for kids. Like I think that there should be a a normalizing of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and knowing that those both exist inside of all of us. And oftentimes, men are more have more proclivity to the divine masculine, and women have more proclivity to the divine feminine. And so by that I mean the expression of femininity, where it feels good to feel beautiful, and it feels good to be accepted and expressed. It feels good to be protected and feel loved and feel that your mate will make sure that your children are safe and protected and cared for and provided for. And then masculine feels good to protect someone. It feels good to have someone to be held and be close to, and be able to protect and be able to love and be able to provide for. And those types of things. I think that that's a wonderful thing built into our species, built into our DNA, and trying to program that out to some extent with programming basically is something that you see in schools, or you saw in schools up until the change of administration. And so like the gender neutral bathrooms, like I've seen enough in psychiatry that I know oftentimes that kind of extreme pull away from what nature provided is often a coping strategy. And so like you'll see like really, really attractive females, like that the other sex is very attractive to just physically, kind of pull away from that divine femininity because of the amount of attention is so unhealthy for their kind of development. And that is also another societal thing, like the ubiquitous access to pornography, uh, with our young males, and young females to some extent being exposed to this amount of like beauty and um, this amount of kind of gluttony, really, being able to like I think it was stated on like a Huberman Lab podcast, like in 1/2 hour, a young man could be exposed to more lust and beauty than an emperor, 1,000 years ago would be in their entire life. And that's not good for our brains. Be straight up about that, right? Like you see a lot more erectile dysfunction in young males. You're seeing a lot more need for testosterone replacement therapy. And then again, that goes back to my point of these young women who are being very sexualized or not looked at for their whole person, being looked at for their physical appearance, who pull back from that reality by cutting off all their hair and wearing baggy clothes and those types of things. And so I think that's an understandable kind of reasoning for that, as well as like I've also seen the coping strategy of pulling back from that femininity because of past trauma, like they were exposed to sexual or physical abuse, to the point where they're like, wow, being a woman is unsafe in this world. And I'm going to switch more into a male type of existence role, and that's a much safer way for me to express myself. And so, yeah, in those extreme cases, I totally understand wanting to pull away. And again, that's largely society based. And we shouldn't glamorize that or, um, you know, push that coping strategy on other people, in my opinion. And I think that, we should make our young people more safe, uh, and devote more time and energy in grade school to those emotional regulation skills, being able to create those and cultivate those inside of our children. How to handle difficult people, difficult situations, and difficult emotions. That's the dialectical behavioral therapy that does a really good job of that and fast tracks that in a lot of ways. It's kind of like muscles, right? We learn our emotional regulation skills in like mostly in general from our parents from ages 0 to 11, our peers from 12 to 19, and romantic relationships 19 and up in general. And so if our parents weren't taught those emotional regulation skills, how to handle difficult people, difficult situations, difficult emotions, they shouldn't be and they can't really be expected to be able to teach those skills to us. So I think that's a really important recognition as you're moving forward. And again, there's a great energy and time investment if you feel like you have a really hard time handling hard emotions, and you want to be happy all the time. Like I would recommend diving into that. Like, okay, was it unsafe to be sad? Is there some repressed or suppressed emotionality there that should be addressed? Where again, I'm shooting all over myself, right? That being said, I want you to live your best life. And if you haven't been revitalized, if you haven't had that kind of recognition of what am I holding, what's holding me back, I feel like I've plateaued or I'm just kind of stuck. And I feel like things could feel a lot better. That's a great reason to reach out to our clinic. We just recently launched a kind of localized program, like some of the national providers that are doing like the at-home ketamine. Again, I'm always going to be much more proponent of in-house ketamine, and intravenous in particular, and over any other ego dissolution agent. So like people are talking about psilocybin, magic mushrooms. People are talking about uh, big things like ayahuasca and DMT and ibogaine and LSD and all these things that are available. You can find them. Yeah, sure. You can even find ketamine recreationally. And they really should be used sacredly in that they're being given on purpose, with purpose, and and you should have a safe place with intentionality to do that work. Am I saying that, indefinitely you should always be healing trauma? Absolutely not. No, I'm saying like maybe your intentionality at some point when there's legalization of all of these things is to go have fun with your friends in the forest and be able to feel that love and appreciation. Like that's great at some point. Like right now, those things aren't legal widely, so I'm obviously not advocating for that. Um, and as a society, we've kind of glamorized alcohol. And we know alcohol is a CNS depressant, a central nervous system depressant. We know it increases depression long run. We know it's basically poison for our liver and our bodies. And our liver does a great job of processing it. And as a society, we've normalized, alcohol consumption, and it very much is, in that same vein, in my opinion, with like the norming schools, in that it keeps us kind of placated as a society. It keeps us from breaking out of molds. It is honestly keeping us from, you know, our next level of evolution, in my opinion, at least in part, or slowing things down. And everything's happening like it's supposed to. It's needed to happen like it's had up until this point. No regrets, not even one letter. Right. And so with that, like being able to kind of really advocate for a changing of your mind with the ketamine infusion, in 2 or 3 minutes we see new dendrites forming on a functional MRI, which has the ability to quite literally change your mind. If you're like, I'm always in a funk, I'm always like, I have no depression or I have no energy. I have no depression. That's awesome. Like, that's great. You're awesome. Well, actually not. Like, I want you to have all the emotion. Part of that human experience is to have all the emotion. Getting stuck in any one of the emotions, that's bad in my opinion. Be it joy or be it sadness or, anything that you're stuck in for a long period, like then you're not experiencing that gambit of human emotion, which is the human experience, which is invaluable. You can't really appreciate joy and elation without having heartbreak and sorrow. And so being able to experience that and make the most out of each emotion, finding the gift of that is so powerful. And so those sled tracks get created of the depression, of the anxiety, of the substance use disorder, the suicidality, of the mood lability. And then ketamine and the other ego dissolution agents, they're all kind of late stage studies. Ego dissolution agent, I use that terminology for letting those walls down safely. And those walls are depression. Those walls are anxiety. Those walls are substance use disorder. Those walls are mood lability and suicidality. And to some extent, those walls are going to the bathroom, and those walls are eating food, and those walls are putting clothes on. And some of those walls should stay on, right? And so most of the time. And so it's so important to recognize that our ego is protecting us. And some of those protective factors become maladaptive in the wrong environment. I would argue anyone's protective factors that they're exhibiting at some point were incredibly protective. Whether that be for you or for great grandma, your genealogy line supported the development of that protective factor. And so good job, me. Good job, human evolution. Like I got here. I'm the best genetic components that my parents had to give at that time in their lives. And so, like again, you can heal intergenerational trauma at any time. And we're genetic makeup and proteome and all this like really interesting kind of next level. It's not just the genome, right? It's the proteome. The proteome is the next level for I think that personalized medicine, and that will be huge when we understand that a lot better. And there's companies working on that right now, and I'm super excited for the proteome. The genome, like that's gene site for those who are in psychiatry and understand it, and that doesn't tell the whole story. So yeah, it can give us an indication, but too many people put too much weight on that. I've had people that I've prescribed medications to that were on the big X list for gene site, and they did incredibly well with them as the best medication they've ever taken. And so it definitely doesn't tell the whole story. Don't take that as law. Gene site, and it can be helpful in prescriptive factors. So nothing's inherently good or evil, right? Dose makes medicine. Dose makes a poison. So being able to revitalize first is so important to get your time, your energy, and honestly, your kind of abundance mindset right. And so with that, revitalizing is paramount. And if you're stuck, like you need to start there. And no one needs ketamine. No one needs any ego dissolution agent. They're all considered non-specific amplifiers of the human experience. That being said, intravenous ketamine is where I would start everyone. And so best bioavailability, straight to the source, intravenously. Best safety profile, no risk of serotonin syndrome, like there is with ayahuasca or psilocybin. Ibogaine, like people die of that every year, and ayahuasca and psilocybin. Psilocybin pretty uncommon. Ayahuasca, there's at least 5 to 10 deaths a year. Ibogaine, a few more than that. And oftentimes that's because there's not a complete medical history taken by the shaman or the director, and they are taking a serotonin modulating medication. And there's no risk of that with ketamine. So also supports the cardiovascular system. So we see a 20 to 30 point rise in systolic blood pressure. Hence the reason uncontrolled hypertension is not what we want for to be able to provide ketamine in general. Again, IV ketamine safer because we can pause it, and then um, so no risk of serotonin syndrome. Only version that supports cardiovascular function uh, as far as the anesthetics, and then it doesn't decrease respiratory drive by itself. With opioids or benzodiazepines, it certainly can. And then the third reason, it's the only version that's legal, which I think is super important, because actually, like you don't have to worry about going underground or getting it through, or your ego dissolution through a potentially shady source. There's a lot of secondary trauma going on right now with like shamans and people entering sexual relationships with people who are already traumatized. Not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And then fourthly, it's the most efficacious that we know about, and that's probably because it's the most well studied at this point. Like, I think if all of them became available and legal tomorrow, I'd still steer people mostly towards IV ketamine, and some people may benefit and have deeper breakthroughs through other ego dissolution agents down the line. And so, it's worth noting as things move forward, and we're looking at becoming a research facility and center so that at our three of our clinics, so we can research psilocybin and psilocin and LSD and the Beckley Foundation. There's a lot of cool researchers, and they're all showing incredible kind of long-term benefits for people, like curative for PTSD, curative for alcoholism, curative for depression, curative for anxiety, curative for panic disorder. And it's really much, much more in the work that comes after the treatment. So then the fourth reason is the efficacy. 70 to 95% effective in mood disorders, like 95% effective in suicidality, which is bonkers. There was that study that came out 2 years ago. ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, basically inducing a seizure under anesthesia, was considered the gold standard for catatonic depression and depression in general and suicidality. Really like a reset, like the reset button in the old Nintendo Entertainment System. And pretty barbaric. You're inducing a seizure with anesthesia. You're paralyzing someone. You're leaving a tourniquet on, so one part of their body is not paralyzed, so you can witness the seizure. And then, depending on how long the seizure is, would kind of indicate like treatment response a lot of time. Hi, I'm back. Do I look less fresh? That's because I am. It's been a long day. I helped a lot of people learn how to help themselves better, and it's been incredibly rewarding. I wanted to finish up my conversation and talk about why this podcast is called Mental Wealth Moves, where the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. So I think that where we left off, we talked about the currencies, right? We talked about time and energy and actual money. And so, again, I think the best way to invest your money is to buy more time and energy. And so that biohacking, that human optimization, we're creating a lot of capacity for people to help themselves through rocked, revitalize, optimize, and harmonize clinic and therapeutics. That wellness circuit that I created, it's designed so you can get in and out in under an hour and really zen out. It puts your mental health at ease. It allows you to get more out of your physical health and wellness. It allows you to become the best version of yourself. And so, that circuit consists of the vibration plate, the for 10 minutes if you're coming in cold, 3 to 5 minutes if you're coming in out of a workout, and then the hug flower, that full body lymphatic massage, amazing, feels so good, in combination with some red light therapy and the harmonizer. That's Joel Green's invention. You just put it right on your sternum, or kind of in your chest area. Feels so good. Down regulates that autonomic nervous system, up regulates that parasympathetic nervous system. Come in with some noise canceling headphones and some binaural beats. A lot of times you'll be able to process through some of those big capital bold T's, those little italic T's of trauma that you're holding in your body. So I'm a big proponent. And then going from the hug flower to the infrared sauna with red light therapy, 140 degrees ish, and go up to 30 minutes. And then hug flower, 20 to 30 minutes. And then vibration play, 3 to 10 minutes. And then cold plunge, up to 3 to even 7 minutes for muscle recovery. But 3 minutes really is kind of the sweet spot for most physical wellness and mental wellness. Start getting those mental wellness benefits around 15 seconds. And then really kind of up and up and up till about 3 minutes. And then really kind of steadily, but just barely increase till about 7 minutes. And then kind of just evens out, if not declines a little bit. And so those are the timelines that I recommend. And there you go. That's 1 hour ish, and you're out the door. So that getting rocked in a good way. That's what our limitless members have access to, in addition to unlimited, very powerful red light therapy, and other cool stuff. So I highly recommend it. It's really good for your physical wellness, your mental wellness, and your spiritual wellness, I would argue. We're all human doings at this point, and so being able to invest more time and energy to getting back to remembering how to be that human being. And that's so magical. That's where we're all trying to get to, is that play like child state of safety, right? Feeling safe to feel safe. And then you can start doing the work and feeling better in a lot of ways. So yeah, those are the best ways you can invest in yourself, is that education, that time and energy, hacking those. And so currencies, you can get more availability of faster resources. Can you go like work out and vibrate and gyrate and dance as a subsequent, like kind of like the vibration plate? Yes. Does it work as quickly? No. And can you do like a massage, or there's nothing else really like the hug flower that you can do in nature. I mean, you can hug people, and that feels beautiful, but you're not getting that full body. I guess if you get a big group of hugging, that was a cuddle puddle. Maybe we might have someone doing a workshop on that at some point. That'd be kind of cool. I'm excited for that. B, I think is her name. And then red light therapy. I mean, that's the sun. Without with a more protective element of ozone, which was depleted by chlorofluorocarbons, and continues to be depleted by certain other kind of environmental wastes that are really impossible to completely mitigate when we've got multiple countries trying to catch up from an industrial revolution standpoint. Hard to mitigate those, and then we don't know what the new stuff is doing. That might come out like, oh, we got rid of CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, and we added this thing that mitigates chlorofluorocarbon waste, and that we're going to find out in a few years that it's way worse, or something like that. It's possible. And we don't know what we don't know, right? No one knows what they don't, or no one doesn't. No one knows what they don't know, and so that helps to go back to the beginner mind. And then again, infrared sauna. Sauna's been around for a long time, and it's super powerful. And most people don't have access to one. And traditional sauna takes 50 to 70 minutes to really do the detoxification that you can do in infrared sauna in 20 to 30. So my recommendation is fast track that, because there's only so many minutes in the day. If you have the time and energy to invest into that longer time, I love a traditional sauna myself. And there's only so many minutes in the day, right? And hard to do anything else when you're in there. And then, depending on how sweaty you get, rinse off or not. And then cold plunge, always one hand on cold. That's the science. And you want to let your body naturally warm up. So, again, going past 3 minutes, diminishing returns, that is a way to really fast track your results. Obviously, there's other big ticket ones. You can do the ketamine infusions, life changing for so many folks. If you're a candidate, starts with the consultation. Reach out today, book through our website, revitalizeketamine.com, and talk about, how we can potentially help you help yourself. So there's a lot of options out there. We could do, mesenchymal stem cells, like those are an option to people. Uh, the red light therapy, like we have the big robust panel. I don't build that into the wellness circuit. I think that's better for skin issues, joint issues, weight loss, as its own service line. And really, the consistency is how you get the most out of red light therapy. You should be using that daily, between 3 and 20 minutes daily, depending on what you're kind of working on. Even up to twice a day for some maladies, some ailments, joint healing. And like you're doing the mesenchymal stem cells, the injectables, doing the red light therapy and or dry needling to increase blood flow to that area, super powerful, highly recommended. That's what the latest evidence supports too, is doing it that way versus actual joint injections where you're opening up the synovial capsule, really high risk of infection. And, it's not necessary is the long and the short of it. It costs way more to do a surgical procedure like that. And the outcomes are very similar with systemic intravenous slow push, as long as you're firing up the localized blood flow. Stem cells are super smart. There's a couple of Alzheimer's protocols, dementia protocols. Really interesting, dementia, looking at that as type 3 diabetes. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So, again, revitalize, optimize, and harmonize your entire life. Get rocked in a good way. And that's what we're all about. So I'm all about helping people help themselves. So hopefully today episode was helpful in you recognizing how you can potentially invest in yourself more. Again, some of those big things are really looking at how you're spending your time currently in regards to where you invest that time and energy. Well, I guess time, we're doing three currencies, right? Where you invest your time. So where is my time going currently? Do an inventory. Start there. Okay, I have 24 hours in the day. What am I doing? Am I sleeping for 14 hours? Is that because I'm depressed or I'm not well rested or I'm not going into that restorative sleep because of potential sleep apnea? Where am I spending my time right now? Am I video gaming for 6 to 8 hours a day? Am I reaching the goals that I want to be reaching? Like, I don't think anything is inherently bad or good, right? Dose makes the medicine, dose makes the poison. I played a ton of video games when I was a kid, and I loved them, and I'm great, and I'm happy where I'm at now. So, like, I'm not anti-video games. I think, depending on where you're at in life, you may want to invest that energy somewhere else than, sitting in front of a video game console for that much time in the day. And you might be perfectly happy where you're at. So, more power to you. And what's good for you is good for the universe, right? So time is do an inventory first, and then you can understand it. Again, that name it to tame it, right? So put it out there to understand where it's going currently if you feel like you don't have enough. And then energy, where am I investing my energy? When you do that time thing, you'll get a good idea as well. So you might want to, in that same 24-hour period where you're doing kind of just a random day, just pick tomorrow, whatever. Don't change anything. Try to just keep it a normal day for you. And while you're inventorying where you're spending your minutes, also consider inventorying what you're putting in your body. And so is that, the KFC, I love KFC, and we should have that all the time. Is it Mickey D's or Burger King or, significant amounts of densely caloric foods and or candy? We know sugar is very pro-inflammatory. Try like doing the Whole 30 diet, where you really kind of have a very significant, delineated elimination diet. And then um, see how your body feels. And then only thing you introduce different besides, stamina and everything else is like your favorite candy. And just do that for 7 days and see how different your body feels. You should be with an elimination diet, is like going back on things slowly and carefully. So reintroduce one element at a time, and then you get a really good understanding of how does that one element really treat me. And so again, I like the Whole 30 diet because it really takes away most every pro-inflammatory thing in the American diet when you do it strictly. And then, it's not how most of us live, nor should you. And it gives you a great idea of where you're starting and where you could go. And so start there, see how it affects you. And then, well, you'll have a bonk at first. Like, I think it was like 7 to 10 days in. I was like, oh my goodness, where'd all my energy go? And then I felt pretty good. And then, reintroducing is always the trick because, like, you're like, woohoo, I did it. And then you go out to eat somewhere and then you reintroduce a bunch of things. And then you're like, okay, well, now I don't feel as good. What was it? And I started to tell most of the time. So trying to figure out where it comes from, right? Name it to tame it. And so with that energy, also looking at, hey, adding one thing at a time, right? If you're not ready for that Whole 30 diet and or some sort of elimination reintroduction diet, then consider changing one variable at a time. The scientist in me loves the one variable element. And so like when people go through the ketamine treatments, a lot of clinicians are like trained in anesthesia, emergency medicine, and they'll just give the normal things that they give, which is like an antiemetic and an anti-inflammatory and this or that, or a couple of like a cocktail. And I want to see people and how they respond on just the ketamine. So I'm kind of a purist at first. Ketamine and saline, that's your first treatment. And let's see how that treats you. Then after that, we can consider adding magnesium. We can add toradol or, oxytocin or ondansetron, and, like different things that might be helpful, and or offset some of the common side effects. And I'd like to see people how they respond on just the ketamine the first time. So same thing with like a diet or exercise or energy program, right? Try adding physical activity first thing in the morning when you wake up, or try adding just meditation first thing in the morning when you wake up. Try not pressing snooze first thing in the morning when you wake up. Try examining, certain things that you want to add. That's the big thing about this is like, I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. I want you to do what you want to do. And I don't care. Like, yeah, I think ultimately, if you live a healthier, happier lifestyle, that will affect me. Like, you could live in Abu Dhabi or, somewhere else that I'll never encounter you physically. And I feel like if you're doing better, I'm doing better in like a little minute detail. So, yeah, I do want what's best for you. And it's up to you to do that. So I don't care if you do it. I hope you do. And, it's up to you. Like I learned a long time ago in healthcare, I'm not in the business of carrying people over the finish line, right? Give people the tools and the knowledge and be a cheerleader a bit. And it's up to you. Like it does you a disservice. It does me a disservice. If I'm like, come with me, we're going, come on my back. And, I think you could do that as a friend, to some extent. You can't be expected to do that as a clinician, or as a professional. So I think we're friends here. Again, everything that I'm saying, even though I am a psychiatric provider and a healthcare professional, I'm not your healthcare professional. I'm not your psychiatric provider. So, you should always, any big changes, particularly, really consult with your healthcare provider to determine if these are good treatment modality for you. So, being aware of that and thinking about that and considerate of that in all things. So that's the time and the energy and then the currency, give what you get. right? I think there is something about like tithing and or giving away a percentage of your income to causes that you're passionate about. I think there is something to that, in that you do get more when you give more. And so being mindful of where your money's going out to, trying to, if you're in a business, trying to hire good people and trying to treat them well. I think that's pretty valuable. Um, so yeah, being aware of all that. And what else? Yeah, more currency. So as far as like actual money, monetary money currency, um, again, consider giving. I think that's important. And then work hard, right? Like I heard that quote. I don't remember who says it, but it's weird. It seems the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? And so if you're trying to build something great, you're looking at 16, 18-hour days sometimes, and you don't know what you don't know. So initially, like bootstrapping is always the best option, in my opinion, unless you have like a generational wealth and or more money than time. Like you've got to learn at least enough on those things that you don't know about to not get taken advantage of and to be able to uh, be aware of those facets of a business or of growing a business. If you aren't in business and you aren't trying to be in business, then no, you don't need to do that. Do what you're doing and try to be cognizant of what that looks like for you in regards to how you're living your life, like, so yeah, business, I'm talking about like bookkeeping and internet, CRM, uh, SEO, and ad strategy, and you know, customer acquisition and retention, and human resources, and payroll and taxes, bookkeeping, and all those things that you got to wear a lot of hats, and it can be quite exhausting. And it's fun to learn new stuff. Like I love it. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. That's something really cool I didn't even know about. Something really cool I didn't even know I could do. And so being like giving yourself space to do that. I was gonna say being aware of that, but I think I say being aware of that a lot. So I'm trying to use a different way of saying that you should look at that. And yeah, I'm getting kind of long-winded at this point. So I'm just gonna finish it up here with the mental wealth moves. Being the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. Be really aware that you are trying the best you can with what you have, and you don't know what you don't know. And hopefully this podcast gave you some more tools on things that you can use and bring into your awareness, aware, because why not? Oh, what? Oh, look at that over there. And then, oh, it's under that thingamajig. And then you say, and I said, I just made you say underwear. Haha. So, on that note, I hope you have the best day ever. And if you made it to the end of this, congratulations. I barely did. So I'm proud of myself too. Thank you for watching another Mental Wealth Moves podcast, where the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. Know that we're here to support you. My name is Casey Dubravcic. I'm the owner, founder, and visionary behind Revitalized Ketamine Clinics, Rocked Wellness Bar, and Epic Biosciences co-founder. So reach out if you have any questions. See our websites for more information. And I'm excited for you to live your best life. And remember,
Thanks for tuning in to another Mental Wealth Moves podcast. Hopefully today's episode was informative for you. Reach out today if there's anything we can help you with. You can reach out to Revitalized Ketamine Clinic at revitalizedketamine.com and Rocked Wellness Bar through rohct.com. You can also call our main line at 928-248-8082. And we're happy to serve how best we can. Thanks so much for listening. Make it a great day.